What's going on, everybody? Prophecy Wiz, and I'm here with my good friend and expert duelist, Hanko Chow, for the start of our new weekly podcast. In this podcast, we're going to discuss the current format, upcoming weekend, new meta trends, cool tech cards, and any new cards that might have been released throughout the week. So, if you guys like this video and content like this, be sure to like, subscribe, and check me out on Twitch at ProphecyWiz_, where I'm currently streaming this live, and we'll be streaming it every Thursday at 8 p.m. Also, be sure to check out Hanko's articles on TCG Player. He writes for TCG Player YuGiOh articles. And check out his Twitch at Hanko YuGiOh, where he was actually just streaming yesterday and opened a case of the new set. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. And, talk about the new format coming up.
Oh, yeah. With Malice and Ryziels at YCS Anaheim, yeah. Who knows what's gonna happen, right? I mean, I think a lot of the YouTubers when they made their tier lists
Mm-hmm.
before this weekend, they're overhyping Malice, I think, a little bit. But I think maybe after I thought they were overhyping the Ryziel stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
after like really reading into the cards and looking at a lot of gameplay video, there there is like when it goes first, you're almost guaranteed to summon Detonator.
Mm-hmm.
And then when people are going second against Detonator with the multiple pops and even like the Meteorological Aggregator guy,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and the cross, it's actually pretty hard to in engine like beat just that single card. It's like every card's gonna get popped. Like you normal summon Snake Eye Ash, it's gonna get popped.
Mm-hmm.
You summon Poplar, Poplar's gonna get popped. I mean, it goes to spell and trap zone, but like your Divine Temple isn't gonna go far. And then when you summon Oak off OSS, that Oak is gonna get popped. And then it's that's three pops right there, and then still have the rest of their hand to beat, the rest of your combo,
Uh-huh.
which is pretty crazy. Or even like Ubel, it's like okay, they summon Phantom, and then they play like Nightmare Throne, and then they go okay, Detonator pop, and they go Chain Phantom. Okay, well Chain pop Nightmare Throne. And
Right.
it's like,
True.
oh, it's pretty crazy. Or I mean, like I'm sure like Fire King. I have a feeling that Fire King is
Mm-hmm.
still probably very dominant because like they have more layer interaction and destruction
Mm-hmm.
effects are. I mean, they're still good. Like you can still pop Garunix and you can still pop like the cards make them have less materials to play with.
Mm-hmm.
But like I think that like there's more there's a higher ceiling with the Fire King Snake Eye Fiend Smith as a Mina deck, so you can probably push through the Detonator eventually with enough extenders.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
especially with
What
the
do you
Fire
what do you
King
think?
cards. I think the more I watch Ryziel play and the more I've played it, the more I think that it is better than I had thought. One thing that would push me away from wanting to personally play that deck is just how bad I feel like it's really just us lose the D barrier. I mean, there's really obviously they play cross out for it, but there's nothing that you can do about that. You will just accept getting D barriered and essentially do nothing. Kind of like how Pirelli was. Like I liked Pirelli still. Still think Pirelli's not a bad deck, but if you flip D barrier, it just feels like you're going to lose, and that's super concerning. But I think the engine is way better than I had thought it was initially. So I think Ryziel's interesting. I do think a lot of people are overplaying it a bit, and honestly, I low-key think Malice is actually going to do really well this weekend. I don't know if a ton of people are going to play it, but I think some good players, like I can see somebody like Pack playing Malice because people are not hyping it as much as Ryziel and doing really well with it because I don't think it's as many weaknesses, and I think you're going to see way more D barrier than you are going to see Lancia. That being said, I still am inclined to feel like Fire King Snake Eye is the best deck going into this event. The deck is still tried and true, and I feel like the Fire King cards especially are such a pain to actually deal with that feels like but like the Snake Eye cards I don't think are great into Dead Netter, right? I think the Snake Eye cards, like a pure Snake Eye deck, is even with a ton of hand traps, I feel like it definitely is worse than a Rise deck to me, but the Fire King cards are that makes me feel like that is going to be really strong still going into the weekend, and a lot of people are going to be more comfortable, right? I think this deck has been super anticipated, the Ryziel and the Malice, so people know way more what these like cards do. Where like Peck kind of caught people off guard with Centurion, right when the new cards came out, even though it wasn't even a full deck, it was just like the new few cards, and people didn't really know what was going on. I think people are
Well, it's
way
also
more.
it was also a meta call against the Mulcharmies because he knows that at least every deck is going to be playing the Mulcharmies.
Right, right. He knew he like a lot of people just weren't prepared for that deck and like how good that deck was going to be and the kind of what its combos were going to look like with the new cards. You know, like being aware that and paying attention to the fact that when they summon that it's a non-targeting pop, right? The one that searches like the new Synchro 8, that was a big deal for me when I played that deck, which I really enjoy. That is like one of the biggest things is it being a non-targeting pop is changed things for me a lot outside of it just making the combo better. So I think people are more prepared for these decks. If I was to play one, I would play Malice, but I still think Fire King Snake is going to be like a great
Well, at least
pick for this
Malice
event.
has Dimension Shifter on their side, right? Post side, at least. I don't think a
Yeah.
lot of Malice players are maining Shifter, but
Mm-hmm.
I think post side, there's a lot of people doing the Shifter, and like a lot of I don't think like even though people know that Lancia or Chaos Hunter is gonna help against Malice, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think a lot of people are actually committing slots in their side deck with Lancia, and they think that just
Mm-hmm.
Nibiru and the other array of hand traps that
Mm-hmm.
people are playing are already good enough against Malice. So Lancia might see less popularity, to be honest. But like it's just it is probably gonna be good once the other decks get power creep out of the format. You know.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. I think there's you're just going to see way more D barrier than you are going to see Lancia. So I think that makes I think Malice is it's like a good pick, especially because I think people aren't quite as prepared for it. Like Ryzel, I think everybody kind of just knows like what's the game plan against Ryzel. I feel like it's no secret that it's you want to hit duo drive. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of intricacies that people probably aren't going to be perfectly practiced on, but I think we all are aware of like, or if you're going to a YCS, you should be aware of that and kind of how to stop it. But I do think there's going to be if somebody is really good with the Malice deck already, I think that is definitely a big advantage for this tournament. But there's still all the other good decks, you know, that have been around. Speaking of the other good decks, what are your thoughts on the Fiend Smith Cash deck? Right, that won the last event. It's still going to be around for this event. What do you think about that going into this event?
Uh, that deck was probably a good meta call because of the hand traps that people were playing, and like I played like a Bystial Fiend Smith deck that was
Mm-hmm.
built to beat Ubel, and I was like before Niagara when Ubel was the more dominant deck for some reason. What was it because of? Oh yeah, because the Azamina cards weren't out yet, right?
Right, right.
So I built that deck to beat the Ubel deck,
Mm-hmm.
and then once the Azamina cards came out, Snake Eye Fire King or Snake Eyes became the more like dominant deck. So that's why Kastira cards trended upwards because not only were people less, there were less Bystials hanging around,
Mm-hmm.
but those cards, Fenrir beats Bystials, and like Unicorn was just way more relevant because it punishes the Azamina cards. They're all one ofs in the extra deck.
Mm-hmm.
You just take them away, and then now the cards are less valuable. Or like take away, those cards are still decent against Tenpai too, because uh, but it's also probably because like people are using Fuelos in the main phase and rather shotgunning it because it's not you don't shotgun it unless you're playing against Ubel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's probably why Unicorn got better. But anyway, that the position of that deck moving forward to this format, um, I think Unicorn and Fenrir are going to be decent into Ryzeal. Um, but they all still have to just be paired with like another non-engine card,
Mm-hmm.
like Triple Tactics Talent or Thrust or like Ultimate Slayer or something. Like you just gotta pair it with something else, and then the cards get even better.
Right, that's
So like,
interesting. They can play some additional new cards like Ultimate Slayer and things in that deck. They definitely have some extra X space. It'd be
they
interesting
have
to
a lot of
see.
it. Yeah. But aside from that, that deck's like it's okay. It's got strong cards, but it just needs to adapt for sure.
Yeah, I think the deck was like a great call for the last event, but I think it's not nearly as good of a call for this event, right? But I think it still is a good deck. Like I think it's just a generically a good deck, right? It just plays a lot of hand trips. If you can play them appropriately, if you can make the right tech choices because it has so much non-engine, it can just be a good deck. But it's not going to be the best deck moving into this format, in my opinion, obviously.
Yeah,
So,
I hear that. I didn't watch the YouTube videos
mm-hmm,
on this deck because like it just looks pretty self-explanatory from the deck list. But like, um, what's it called? Like people said that they only built the deck to top the event. They weren't building the deck to like win the event because because the deck itself, like, it doesn't look very powerful. It just looks like it has a lot of flexible cards that can sustain. But
Mhm.
if the other person just draws a way better hand, then they're gonna get out like just blown out.
Yeah, so
So it's definitely it did its job. It topped the
right.
votes. It didn't win
Yeah, they
everything.
all did great with it. And I think that like one of the things is like I think they suspected that it's possible they could win, but I think one of the problems that happened for that event is that once people kind of knew what was going on and people were able to watch after day one and be like, wow, look at this deck that all these top players are playing, and they were able to watch the matches, it was kind of became more self-explanatory that like the deck doesn't actually do anything when it goes first, and it definitely chose to go first. What I mean by that is like I think that people were, myself included, underestimated a bit how good the four was. The Lacrima, right? The normal summon, like that card is so good going first. But at the same time, realistically, if you just wait for the Link 2 and stop the Link 2 and Imperm Revealer the Link 2, the deck
Yeah,
doesn't do anything, right? It puts up it dumps a trap that is not going to stop enough, and it can maybe summon a
yeah,
cash
it's just
monster.
one pop. Yeah, but
Yeah,
it but
so
it, it means that the one card retained value, and that's what the whole deck was about. It's just retaining value. And
right.
that's kind of why I like the Bystial version more, because I played two regains and I was able to like keep turning advantage if
Hmm.
when things get banished. And also like the Bystials themselves were extenders post hand traps rather than like Kashtira cards where you have to commit to them first and then like summon your Fiends of cards.
Hmm.
Actually surprised they didn't play Scareclaw Kashtira, because in that version you would play it to beat Tenpai, and the whole Fiendsmith X deck, like Fiendsmith Kashtira or Fiendsmith Bystial deck, they
Hmm.
both kind of struggle against Tenpai. So having that tool with Scareclaw Cash to not only be like a second extender, but also having that Tenpai relevancy matchup could be pretty good. Although like there are obviously counterplays to it,
Hmm.
where you just summon out Transcendent and kill it, or in the main phase, rather than like because like you can only summon Scareclaw Cash in the main phase, but at
Hmm.
least like it's still like an option that forces your opponent to do another option instead.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Honestly, I think the Bystials could have been good in that. I mean, I think the Bystials are like kind of poorly positioned at the moment, which I think is part of the reason people have like moved away from them, myself included. I was playing Magnemut because I mean Magnemut's obviously crazy, but they're not nearly as good as they've been in just like past formats, and I don't think they're going to be great moving forward into this next format. But I do think that that deck is gonna. It has the room to be innovative, so that's one of the interesting things. Is like people, if you play the same Fiendsmith cash deck, it's very unlikely that I think you're gonna see success this weekend. But I think they could tweak the idea and keep. Like I still think that it's not a bad premise in general.
I think
To
the
move forward.
Mystials are still decently positioned in this format, because like against Ryziel, like it only gets rid of aggregator, but if you limit your Bystials to just one Magnemite or like one Druid Swarm or something, and you're only gonna open one Bystial in your hand, it's still gonna do something, like getting rid of the aggregator, like getting rid of the Link 5 that sends the fusion that like negates a spell trap. That fusion I'm pretty sure is a light or dark. What's it called again? Cybers. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, it
the
will.
Malice card.
The save worm. Yeah, the
Yeah,
Cyberse
yeah.
the save worm. You can get rid of that, or like you can probably. There probably is other choke points they can get rid of, like the link decoder or whatever Splash Mage is bringing back if they're not going for like a different attribute. Obviously, you're not going to use your Bystials against a Malice card, but like, I mean, maybe you could. I guess I don't know the scenario yet, but it just in theory, Bystials are still positioned really well. I think so. That's why the Malice deck is still playing with them. Because otherwise, I think I saw like a topping list, like from some sort of online
Hmm.
tournament. They're only playing like two Druids, two Baldric, and a Magnamut. That's like five. And if you think the Bystials are poorly positioned, you probably would only play like three or four, maybe. Maybe yeah, probably three, just because like you only need two Juris Worms and a Mag. You don't really need Baldric. I mean, I guess Baldric is just. I guess you could play it as like a going first kind of option, but I wouldn't play Baldric going second.
Yeah, you can play 2-1 or 1-1-1 and any of them. Like I personally wouldn't. I wouldn't be running them this week. I just don't think they're really. I just would don't think they're great into anything. I think they're usable, but I think they're like they've been usable and everything. They just like it felt like other formats. They were just well positioned cards where I think other people are just not
Yeah,
playing
it's more
those in that
impactful for
anymore.
sure. Yeah, it would
But
be more impactful. Like these kind of impacts that I mentioned, they're not very strong,
right, it's
but
just
like
an
Druid Swarm
activation
and
window.
Magnemite, yeah, but Druid Swarm and Magnemite, they're still gonna like either get you another dragon or it's gonna send a special summon monster on the field to the graveyard.
Hmm.
So like for example, against Detonator, when you go like you summon Detonator, effect to absorb the Mirological Aggregator,
Hmm.
you're gonna go change Druid Swarm, summon it, and then like well there goes the aggregator. You don't have to deal with the aggregator negate,
Hmm.
and then you can either crash your Druid Swarm to send the Detonator or like get it off the field to send a thing. But obviously that's just gonna deal with the field spell, right? So I mean, it trades with the field, so you're inevitably going to trade with the field spell, either with a cosmic or some sort of monster effect. The Magnemite, on the other hand, I guess like that probably is a worse trade because like you're gonna activate its effect on field, and they're either gonna pop it with Detonator, which
Hmm.
gets rid of the card, or they're just gonna negate it with the field spell. So I guess yeah, Magnemite is probably worse, but Druid Swarm is definitely still gonna be very strong.
Yeah, Jerusalem I think gains a lot of traction, especially with like the Baguska and things. I know I was saying I like play a decent amount of Centurion, right? And I've not, I haven't really been a big fan of like the Bystial version, as you know. I never really have been. I'd rather just play other starters and extenders, Fenris, things like that. But I do think that when I was thinking about like what can this deck actually do, I do think playing like the Lubellion and then playing multiple copies of Druid Swarm came to mind as something that was like it could deal with Detonator because you have enough hand traps to very likely not let them get the field spell, right? So you just have to like deal with the Detonator, which is backbreaking for that deck, but the Druistorm could be good. So the Detonator alone honestly could make the Druistorm a bit better going into the format, right? Because for obvious reasons, the Druistorm would
Assuming
be
that you
interesting.
negate a dual driver, yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
So
Mhm.
that'll be very interesting. Are there any kind of sleeper decks that you are looking at for this weekend that you think would be an interesting pick, right? If you were going to the YCS, either for yourself to play or just something that you think could be neat to look out for that you think could do well?
Uh, uh, I think the Ryziel Shark deck that Steven or Triff was hyping was is interesting. There's actually I tested the deck and like it's really good into like hand traps for sure,
Mm-hmm.
just because like Bahamut Toad. But when you do summon the Toad, now you have a rank 2 on the field, and it actually conflicts with like the Ryziel
Mm-hmm.
X Ryziel, because when you summon X Ryziel, you're gonna dump like your second Toad, and
Mm-hmm.
then the Toad is gonna add back the Drake or the Big Jaws, which is another extender, and you would assume like, oh yeah, I'm gonna activate the X Ryziel effect on the field to summon
Mm-hmm.
out or to add the Fire one, but then like, you realize, oh wait, there's a Toad on the field now. So I think some of the replays that have been shown, when you summon the Bahamut Shark, your opponent always imperms it, so you're never actually summoning the first Toad.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so
That
then when
makes
you do
sense.
summon the X Ryziel, it actually does do a +3. When if you do summon the Toad, then you're only actually like plussing 1 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's the weird thing about the card. It's like, oh wow, letting your opponent resolve Bahamut Shark is actually bad, and
Mm-hmm.
instead compared to what happens if you or if you don't resolve it.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I didn't thought about that, but
Yeah,
that is
but then I thought
neat.
like, what if you do play Shark Ryziel, but instead of making Bahamut Toad,
Mm-hmm.
you play Stealth Kraken, and you
Oh,
actually
it is a
play
four.
this yeah, yeah, they do already play it, but what if you actually play the Stealth Kraken spawns along with it? Because then you go number 4, like the numbers,
Mm-hmm.
what's it called? Let me look at this up. Stealth Kraken. So you summon number 4 Stealth Kraken,
Mm-hmm.
and then you pop stuff, and then if it gets popped because of detonator, then like you get to summon out the Stealth Kraken spawns
Mm-hmm.
from your extra deck, which is like 2 other rank 4s, and then those attach the other water monsters, and then they don't really have an effect unless your opponent has water monsters, but you're supposed to crash one of those to bring back the
The
original Stealth
Kragan,
Kraken,
yeah.
and then that now that you have this number 4 Stealth Kraken and the Stealth Kraken spawn, then you have like more double
Right, and he
pops,
makes everything
and I
water,
think
right?
yeah, exactly, exactly. So like I think like
Hmm.
like having more floaty cards is beneficial than like a totally awesome that can just get ran over by anything, and then like you lose a lot more value, I guess. But like you still have to play the totally awesomes
Mm-hmm.
because they combo with the X Ryziel to add you back the Drake or the Jaws to
Mm-hmm.
like just get more pluses. So I think that's an interesting concept I've been thinking about. But like I don't actually know if that's a good idea because Stealth Kraken's only got 1900 attack, and then Detonator's like 3000, and like you're trying to destroy Detonator, and that's like not the greatest. So like, it's just it's interesting, yeah, for sure. But anyways, other low key decks that are like good, like we all know top 32 is going to consist of Malice, Ryziel, Fire King,
Hmm.
Snake Eye, Yubel, um, Tenpai. Oh yeah, Tenpai for sure. Uh, what other decks can sneak in the top cut?
I mean, you both still could,
I think,
right?
I think Melodious is actually positioned pretty well. I mean, besides the whole losing the D barrier
Interesting.
thing, I
Why
think
is that?
Melodious is pretty strong because, like, well, the engine of the deck is already still pretty strong. The consistency of the deck is like not as strong as the other
Hmm.
decks, I guess. But like it has the room for the hand traps to play like Aldemol Charmies, Dominus Imperm, maybe even Herald of Orange Light, which I don't know. That card's like risky but very rewarding.
Hmm.
But when it pops off and you build the full board of like the bounce, the aria, and either Shiberta or Elegy or whatever, I think like that board usually can win you the game because like unless your opponent specifically has droplets or Dark Ruler, they have to deal with the non-targeting bounds, and they have to commit to something that threatens the non-targeting bounds while your cards are untargetable and indestructible by battle at least. In some matchup you'll have to prioritize Elegy, and I think by forcing your opponent to commit that far and then like at 12 bouncing, then the rest of your hand traps will slow down your opponent to a point that they can't kill you, and then your cards will come back, and then on your turn you're gonna bounce them all again, and then you're just sitting in a really good spot. And then going second, it's still like it's still got all the hand traps,
Hmm.
except that you can't really play Nibiru or Bystials, but like I think like technically you could play Nibiru, specifically Nibiru, because you'll just summon your opponent's token in attack mode and just crash your Nibiru into it and then
Hmm.
play and then pop off from there. Like I can see that happening, or you could play Phantasme and just crash your Phantasme too. But like it has like all the room for hand traps, and it's got the
Sure,
best
you could play like
defensive
18 good
options,
ones, right? You
obviously.
could play like all the regular ones, just like
Yeah,
Ash, Imperm Valor, Mourner, Ogre, Orange, Light, and Dominus Purge. Just like 18 hand traps right there. You could
Dominus
decide and do a
yeah,
few
Purge,
more.
yeah, exactly,
Dominus
exactly.
Purge is really good right now too because it's never gonna get crossed out against the Ryziel deck, and it can just stop duo drive every single time on its own. So it puts you into like having to deal with like a lot less.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
I do think like if you do happen to open Ostinato with it and you get to stop duo drive, like Detonator is gonna pop a few cards, but you gain so much value from that card that you may just push right through.
Yeah, like if Elegy was like easier to summon, then like I guess that'd be cool. But like I guess just the first solo into Aria is already gonna deal with like the detonator, and then you just gotta like summon other cards to beat the cross. And I mean, I guess you still have to beat Baguska too, but like you just make link monsters, right? Or no, you just make Baka, and then Baka doesn't really lose to the Baguska. You're still gonna be able to summon, but at least you have like the defense to stop them from killing you, and then you just like eventually beat the Baguska and win. So
Yeah, Melodious is an interesting pick. That wasn't
yeah.
something that would come to mind, but I think I mean I've always like actually like Melodious. I mean it plays a lot of hand traps. I tend to like decks that play a lot of hand traps just because you can play going first and second every single time, and it doesn't feel like you ever just like throwing games in the garbage because your deck doesn't play enough hand traps. Melodious was one of the decks that plays the most hand traps, obviously.
Yeah, like I,
So
I wouldn't play like Centurion or Voiceless, or like let's see what other decks are relevant. I mean Exodia is
that's
okay. I'm
interesting
already an
though.
Exodia
That
deck.
you're tripping for sure on the voiceless thing. Voiceless is way. I mean, any of the two card combos just beat Dead Netter.
Yeah,
So like
true.
that
And I hear that
is
people can even splash the Voiceless cards with the Ryziel deck or the other way around. I think that was like something that happened in Japan, but like I don't know if it's gonna happen here.
yeah they were doing that. Also, the Nadir servant does crack the entire board on its own. If they do the full combo and you have zero interruption, it can just crack the whole fucking board, which I think is interesting. Um, I think
True.
that is like a deck that
Nadir
is
Servant's pretty
gonna
strong.
be a like. I think the only I actually think that deck is super well positioned into just because any of like the like a Saphira Skull Guardian can play through a Dead Natter. So if you can just stop the Duo Drive from getting the field spell and the quick play, I think you can play through their board quite a bit and then set up shit that they can't deal with. And when you go first, setting up like Voiceless is insane into hand traps. So setting up like the double Seravis play with the Skull Guardian, like there's nothing that Ryziel or Malice can really do to that. Right? They just try to summon from the extra deck twice, and you just negate it. They summon 2 more guys, and you pop 2 with the trap. The only thing that I think will hold that back, like the deck back a little bit, the reason I don't know if I want to call it a sleeper pick just quite yet is because I still think it isn't the greatest deck into the Snake Eye Fire King deck. I think specifically the Fire King cards, it play really niftily into the Voiceless deck. I think Centurion though is cooked, honestly. I think that like the more I've tested that deck, I love that deck. I just think it's just I don't think it can even go first, and I think it's very hard to play
people are
into
playing
2 to 3 hand traps.
apparently, so.
Yeah, everybody in that deck gets crushed by Ogre. So that deck's just been really, really poor. Labyrinth is an interesting one. I'm like conflicted on Labyrinth.
5 pass is pretty good, yeah. Yeah, but like my friend says, like, oh yeah, you're gonna play Labyrinth, and they're just going to well, you still have to deal with Detonator, and then apparently on your turn they're gonna summon Tornado Dragon with plugin and the trap, and then like they're gonna keep like harassing you with Tornado Dragon. If you activate anything, they're gonna pop the other card. Because unlike Dryden, where Dryden only pops face up cards, this is Detonator where it can pop like any.
Right.
So and it's not even once per turn. So the more you activate, the more cards it's gonna pop. So set 5 pass. I think you gotta adapt with the set 5 pass by putting cards like Waking the Dragon or like what other cards can just punish.
Yo, Dark Sacrifice.
True. That one sends
a Fiend to deck, so it can like dump, like just like negate the Dead Natter and then dump a backjack to the graveyard, right? Which is like an interesting interaction.
Negate the one time, then you just chain the Detonator again and pop the same card I was trying to negate.
It surely does.
Still like at least retains the value for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I like that the Arius, right, can like you could play 3D Barrier and then play 3 copies of Trap Trick, and you would already be playing 3 Trap Trick. It's possible you play just like the 2D Barrier.
Yeah, that would be built to like beat Ryziel, but then you're gonna be playing against like the Snake Eye Fire deck, and you're like, wow, what am I doing? 2D barriers in your deck.
That's the thing.
I mean, but at least you have like simultaneous equation cannon, which will deal with that because banishing their entire field is pretty strong.
Right, and I think like especially coming into this next format, I think that like with Ryziel and Malice becoming a bit better, I think that Lightning Storm and Feather Duster are going to become a lot better, which is the initial reason I stopped playing like Labyrinth in the first place. Because when I came back when we got the first ban list, I'd taken a couple months off and came back when the Snake Eye deck got hit for the first time. I took off like the tier format, and I started playing that deck, and I thought it was cool. Played it for a while, and then I realized that you would just not know what your opponent's playing, and you would just queue into the Tenpai deck and just not know it's Tenpai. You would set your back row, go into the main phase. Like you would win the die roll, set some back row, be feeling good, be like, oh, I actually have some like relevant traps. So one of them might be Trap Trick. And then they would go stand by main phase 1, activate Lightning Storm on your back row. And the reality of that situation was you could do some things, but it just generally is so neg on card economy, and a deck that oftentimes ends up really poor on card economy as it is. I know Impulse is gonna, if we get a ban list that happens to hit the appropriate decks, then Impulse is gonna lose a lot of steam, but I don't think it's getting taken out of the Fire King Snake deck, and that card also posterizes. Like there are times where you have to use a furniture card, use 2 cards, and then you set one of the other furniture cards, go activate Little Welcome, summon a Lovely, and then activate the Big Welcome, right, to now start getting the value, and they chain Impulse, and that was 3 cards, and you took 3 cards to do nothing. Like that's crazy.
True. That's not a monster effect. They can respond.
Right. Where before it used to be like, oh, you could play it safe that way to play around Bell. Which is cool, but that was like, because I actually had tested that deck for the remote YCS because I was thinking it could be good. I think that's still setting Daruma Cannon is really strong. And I thought that against the Tenpai deck, you could like chain a Trap Trick, set 2 copies of transaction rollback, which I in the past wasn't a big fan of, but I thought that was interesting, and I thought that Arius is obviously just really good, which I still think it's really good, right, into Trap Trick and Friends. So I think it's interesting. I definitely don't think it's anywhere near unplayable, but the more I see the format playing out, the more I'm unsure how good I actually think that deck is. I think it's interesting. I like the D barrier thing though, because I really do think you obviously can just set D barrier every single turn, and like when you go first, you should be able to beat the Ryziel deck, and then when you go second, maybe one of the two games you get to open Dimensional Barrier going second, right? So
Uh, True, and that'll probably skip at least one turn, but you're gonna like lose everything else still. Like it's hard unless you like have a solemn strike, I guess. Like you have to like combine a various amount of cards to beat the Detonator and Tornado Dragon. Oh my gosh.
well, that's the thing is if you open Arius, you on their
Oh,
turn
okay,
zero
open
going
Arias
second.
Trap Trick, yeah, or
But
Arias.
also if you open either Trap Trick or D Barrier and you open like the clock combo and you open like off a furniture piece or and like the clock, which you can just like max on. Before
Yeah,
Arius came out, I used to max on it, and that combo can just like set up the big welcome, you big welcome back on, or set up even a little welcome Ariana for an Arius to your hand, and then Arius to set up Trip Trick, because it doesn't really matter how much card
yeah,
economy you're using there, right? You're just setting up a lovely play to reset the barrier every turn. And if you could do that one of
yeah.
the two games, you in theory could just beat Malice or Ryziel. So if Ryziel becomes like infinitely the best deck, it could be really strong
Yeah, and
there.
they also even have the mulch armies to back it up too, just to like make
They
your
do have the
opponent just
chummies to draw into that, yeah, which is
yeah, like or the chummies to make your opponent just pass turn on nothing. So like if they go
mhm,
Borrelia, oh, I guess I'm not summoning from my hand, or they're gonna summon once from the. I mean, I guess both Borrelia and Fuelos are gonna at least draw you one card against Ryziel,
mhm.
because they're at minimum going to just play Detonator Pass instead of going for the dual driver full combo. So I guess it's an over it's an over expensive upstart or whatever.
Right.
Oh my god.
That deck is the best user of Typhon too. I'd have to I think.
True. I don't know how I feel about Typhon in this meta right now. It's like it's not the same as when people set up Bear and Savage. Then the card was like, oh my gosh, wow, that card just got rid of all of those cards.
Yeah, I mean, it could if you're actually setting a ton of back row, right? You could like almost the thing is like you can almost summon a thing, but then you can't use the effect to still detonator it. So like if you play like more things like backjack though, like I almost wonder if you play like, less clock combos, right? Play more backjack to try to hit like barrier and thing,
Oh, true,
and
true.
then like you can open it with the furniture pieces, or you can normal summon it into a Typhon, which I do think is really good, right? Summon the Typhon on top of
Yeah,
it, detach, they can chain detonator pop, sure, but then you bounce the detonator if you were able to stop the field spell.
yeah,
It's a weird
yeah. I can
situation
totally
though.
see one Labyrinth player sacking their way into top cut just
Right.
because like they play like the anti Ryziel deck to try
Hmm.
and open D barrier turn zero against them.
Right. It's just what can it play against the Fire King Snake deck is part of the problem, right? It's like
Yeah, well, you just
not
post
sure.
side it, switch to DDG, or like switch to whatever. I don't know, but like a blind second set five deck with all the Molcharmies main and all the furniture pieces to combo off on your opponent's turn does sound fun to play. I guess if your opponent catches on, they're gonna force you to go first game one, and that's gonna be like a top cut situation where they know what you're playing, they know what kind of style you're playing at, and then they counter it by just making you go first, and then you're gonna open up your mulch armies and be like, well, these are not the best going first. Yeah,
True. The furniture pieces get rid of them though, at least, which is cool.
yeah, for sure. It's just
Oh.
they could have been something more valuable.
Matter,
They could have
yeah,
been
a trap card in the trap deck.
yeah.
Oh.
Imagine. Oh my god. I guess like those two are positioned pretty well. What other cards are positioned well? Oh my goodness, like just dealing with detonator. Cards that you summon that you don't care that are getting destroyed. I mean, I guess Sky Striker is positioned kind of well just because they have like talents and thrust, and they already are like a blind second kind of deck, and
Mhm.
they have Widow Anchor. Like the striker cards are always positioned
Mhm.
well lately, just because like they play best into hand traps and they don't really lose to board breakers by going second or just like not committing everything, I guess.
Mhm.
That's hard to say though, because like a lot of the modern striker decks, they are fully dedicated to blind second game one,
Mhm.
and they don't even play that many like hand traps to like if we're post side. Like I feel like when you force the striker player to go first, it's kind of awkward unless your deck loses to D Barrier or DDG or Threatening Roar. Like those, like those are the three trap cards I've seen them play in
Hmm.
their side deck: either T Roar, D Barrier, or DDG. And it's like, well, they're gonna set a Widow Anchor and have a Shizuku and pass, I guess, or even a Shark Cannon, and you just got to deal with that, and you just
Uh-huh.
push through it, and then you're gonna be like in advantage. Like, it's hard to say, but I think striker cards can probably pull out another top cut.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting one, striker. You know what else kind of seems interesting for this tournament, possibly moving forward, is evenly matched.
Oh yeah. Evenly match is a good tech card right now.
That
At
seems,
least I think so.
yeah,
Although like it's not good against the Maliceful combo just because they have the spell trap negate with the Link 5. But
yeah.
if you probably hand trap them enough, then they can't end on the Link 5.
Hmm.
Then like I guess the evenly match gets better. But yeah, against Ryziel, it's hard to say because you're still gonna have to deal with Detonator. But at least you don't have to deal with Cross and the
Hmm.
plugin. You just have to deal with Detonator and the rest of their hand, and like maybe that's enough. Who knows? I
You know what's
don't know.
kind of interesting? What if somebody played like the Fiend Smith cash deck, right? And they have all that space. And like what if they committed like a little bit different of a main deck, right? And then played like in the side deck something along the lines of like 3D barrier, 3 trap trick, 3 copies of evenly matched, 3 Lancia, maybe 1 copy of the Artifact Sanctum or whatnot, and then played played Soul Release somewhere for the Fire King deck.
Mm,
Because if they could fit Soul Release in those cards to just like be able to cover all 3 of those matchups, that could be interesting.
in the Fiend Smith's that's Fiend Smith's cash deck. You said.
Yeah, in the side deck. Because they're the ones who have
Uh,
like room, right? They have to like switch up. That deck can't stay the same as it was for the last format.
true.
But it's like they have room for a lot of these cards. A lot of them can't be main deck, but kind of interesting that like that is one of the decks that comes to mind that could play something interesting like that. Like I'm not sure exactly what ratios of what, but something along those lines that could be neat.
Okay. I do hear some people are like talking about Fiend Smith Ryziel, and
Hmm.
I just don't understand why they would do that. But like, I read the cards and I realized that Ice Ryziel, when you normal summon it to summon another one from your deck, you're not actually rank 4 locked.
Uh
So
huh.
you go like Ice to Sword, and then Sword gets you to X Ryziel,
Hmm.
and then from there you're not rank 4 locked, and you can like just Fiend Swift combo, I guess. But then if you do that, uh, I, f- well, you do that, and then you can summon X Ryziel afterwards if they hand trap you. So
Hmm.
like that's kind of neat, but like I I I think like there's a little bit of confliction sometimes because like let me just get a drink here because I think there's a very specific Ryziel that says like you can only summon it if you control whatever, right? Like what's it called so you could just summon X Ryziel with whatever, but then the on-field effect doesn't work unless you have only rank 4 monsters. So like that's weird.
Hmm.
Um, you can summon Sword Ryziel as an extender still. You can still summon Ice Ryziel as an extender. I guess there isn't really that much confliction. What about the what's the other one? Where did he go? Uh, what's the super rare called from? My goodness, do I not have it on the table?
It's kind of like the same confliction with Toad, right? That you were talking about.
Only for the one guy. But it's only his search effect. You can still use him as an extender.
Which is
I
nice.
guess I don't have it on my table. Oh, I probably put it over here. Oh, yeah, there he is. What does Node Rise do again? If you have an Exceed in your field or graveyard, summon it from your hand. Okay, yeah, so I guess there's no real confliction if you do the Fiendsmith stuff first and then the Ryziel stuff. That could be neat, I guess.
Yeah, plays a little harder in a nib, but then again, you could just do the
True.
Fiendsmith stuff in Summon Caesar, which would play less in a
Yeah,
nib.
it forces hand traps because you're summoning Caesar.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's
That's
like,
kind of neat.
yeah, but then if they have Nib, they're gonna just pair it with the other hand trap. I guess they just forces it beats solo Nib hands for sure. But
Hmm.
like, I don't really think in this kind of metagame where people are deck building to like 50, like 18 hand traps,
Uh huh.
specifically 18, that number, that they're only gonna open just Nib. Like if we
They're
were
not.
playing back in like a 12 hand trap format
Hmm.
or even like 9, then like yeah, people are are only gonna open Nib for sure, or like
Right.
only open Imperm.
God, it's crazy
But
how long
mine,
ago it wasn't. Like, it wasn't that long ago that I feel like 9 to 12 hand traps felt like a good amount of hand traps. Now it's like you're playing 9 hand traps, playing the wrong deck.
yeah, you're stuck in time, bro.
Right? Isn't that crazy? It's like, good luck
Or
with
you're
that.
playing 9 board breakers. You're not playing 9 hand traps. You're playing like evenly droplet and dark ruler or
Right, and
something.
you're praying
Lightning storm.
that you don't queue into like Ubel or like God forbid Mermail. That would be infinitely worse. That like
Yeah,
you've lost immediately. That God, that deck I feel like is gonna lose a lot of steam too.
the Ubel deck.
I mean, both. I think Ubel already lost a lot of steam, but Mermail was like looking okay in the last format, and I think now it's just like not looking that
There's another
okay.
shifter deck in the format. That's why, yeah.
It's
And even
shifters.
Bystial can technically play shifter too, but like
Hmm.
it's not the same. Like it's
Yeah,
I don't
no,
think
it's.
I don't think I would play shifter in my Ryzeal deck just because I want to use certain graveyard effects.
Hmm.
And even like some of the Ryzeal cards they pitch for cost, so like you want to like able to extend with them. So I don't think I would, but I do hear that some people are going to play shifter in their
Hmm.
Ryzeal deck just because it is good, or even like I definitely think that Retaliating Sea has a lot of potential in the Ryzeal deck
It's interesting.
against the fire decks for
Uh
sure.
huh. Yeah, it's a 4.
But like, yeah, it's a 4. Yeah. But like, I mean, I feel like the rest of the hands that they were making were already beating the fire deck. It'd just be like an insane blowout for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's hard for the snake deck to play around unless they preemptively like summon Flamberg before they play the spell cards to do
Hmm.
stuff. And then even at then, you're forcing the Flamberg to shove the retaliating rather than like putting IP in the back row or something.
Right.
That could
That's
be
an 8
interesting.
tech for
Yeah.
that. Yeah. And I was thinking about Aritama on them too, right? Because they don't oftentimes need the normal summon. Can just like be a free extender. That was like one of the things that first came to mind. I think
Yeah.
Lucas Sacco had now mentioned it, but that was like immediately because when I played the Exo Sister deck, I
Aritama
was playing that.
Sakatama.
Yeah, yeah. I thought those
Oh,
cards were neat.
actually,
Yeah, I like that. I like
yeah,
that
actually,
deck.
I was thinking about Ryzeal Exorcisters for a little bit. Yeah, because like you can like commit 2/4s to make the Caspitel, the one that
Hmm.
searches for Martha, and then Martha will summon Alice and then search for make the what's her name? The one that banished Machias, and then
Hmm.
Machias searches for the trap. So, but then you're rank 4 locked because of the Ryzeal stuff. So on your opponent's turn, you have to flip the Returnia that
Hmm.
exceeds it, that banishes a card and then exceeds. Oh, sorry, you exceed first into Magnifica and then banish a card, and then Magnifica will banish a card and then switch back into Machias to banish another card. Like that's just that's like a different form of detonator that loses to like Raigeki. But like it's I mean, if Raigeki is fading away from the format, then that package is probably gonna be really good.
That's interesting. Which
Yeah,
were you talking about the trap that can summon?
yeah, the Exo Sister. I'm pretty sure it's called Returnia, right?
Yeah, I think
Like
it's
you were,
Returning and Vadis, right? Are the two of them? I forget which one
yeah.
was
So you
which.
summon Caspitel
Hmm.
with your, Ryzeal cards. Then
Uh-huh.
you use its effect to search for Martha.
Hmm.
Martha summon Ellis, and then you exceed those to Machias to get rid of a card. Like this is going second, assumingly, and then you
Hmm.
also get the search for Returnia, and you set the Returnia, and then on your opponent's turn, if all your monsters are Exorcisters, which I assume that that's all you have, because you can even use your Node or Ice Ryzeal to get rid of
Hmm.
the non Exorcister cards to summon them. And then yeah, you use Returnia to summon Magnifica using your 2 rank 4s and also banish a card, then Magnifica banish, then Magnifica tag out into Machias to banish another card. It seems like a lot of layered this well not layered, it's like because you're losing the droplet for sure. But like it's like a lot of interactions
Hmm.
for when you started off with just 2 level 4s. Yeah.
Right. Speaking of Droplet, what do you think about Droplet right now?
Oh, it's really good. Oh yeah. Everyone knows it's really good. I mean,
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
yeah, that's kind of why Melodious isn't that great because everyone is playing Droplet probably. But like, if you don't see it, you don't see it. You know.
Yeah, when I tested that deck, it wasn't even as much Droplet. I mean, it was definitely as like Droplet, but it was like things like Dark Ruler, where it was like they just have there is no counterplay. It's not even if you open like some sort of a good hand, it can
Mhm.
do it, right? Where it's
But
like,
like, if people are playing Solemn Judgment though, and you're not pitching a trap card, because normally when you're playing Droplet, you're not pitching a trap card
mm-hmm,
unless like you're playing around the Solemn. Because like if you're playing against like Melodious and all your cards are untargetable, you're not going to imperm Droplet because you can't.
mm-hmm,
Or like if they're summoning a monster like seals or whatever, and you already committed a card, then like you can't imperm droplet. You have to just
Hmm.
pitch the imperm from your hand. So Solemn Judgment definitely punishes the droplet if they don't pitch a trap card,
Uh-huh.
which is why like there is counterplay for sure. Counterplay with another non-engine card. And go, yeah, just draw the out.
It's funny. I wonder. I think Tenpai is gonna lose. I mean, I feel like Tenpai has been like losing a little bit of steam, except for Denier Match Mario, who has
Nah,
been.
no, yeah, no. The Tenpai is still really good. It just got to adapt a little bit, like main deck Ultimate Slayer or Droplets instead of like Raigeki, and then like the deck is still running fine. It's still scary. I think the only downside is though is that D barrier is definitely gonna be in everyone's side deck
True.
at the YCS. So like
Probably Thrust too.
that makes it yeah. Well, Thrust is so when you're playing Tenpai and you're anticipating your opponent to play Thrust, either A, you just don't shotgun any monster effects on when they're comboing off, you just hold board breakers in your hand, like Imperm and the Raigeki Duster, Lightning Storm, whatever.
Impulse,
Or
right?
B, you see the like Mulcharmy, you have to see it with an Ash Blossom, so that way you just go Mulcharmy, and then when they thrust, you just Ash it, and you're like, well,
Hmm.
you just gotta hold the Ash Blossom for the thrust.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
That's not out of the question. Yeah, I don't think the deck's horrible. I think it's just like it's been losing a bit of steam. I think people are super prepared for it, but I don't know.
yeah, they're
Mario
definitely super
continues to.
prepared, but like it's one of those decks that like even though you're anticipating it, sometimes you just don't draw the better hand. Sometimes they
Yeah.
will draw Exodia and you don't draw Exodia,
Yep.
and then like you just lose.
Yeah. No, it really does. It's kind of the story of it. I think a
Yeah,
lot of people don't like
like
it
like
because
I,
of
I
that.
wrote it in my article. What one of the like segments or little paragraphs that I wrote in my article, the recent one, I posted like it got uploaded just like last night or something, where I
Hmm.
posted my November's Rogue Deck article, and one of the theories I have is that this format's cool and all, but like Tenpai is like one of the best decks, but it's also one of the worst decks of the format because like any deck can beat it, but it also can beat any deck just because
Hmm.
like it can draw really well, or your opponent just draws D barrier, and then
Uh huh.
it's awkward. But like there are people that say that Tenpai can still win under D barrier, and the only time I've won under D barrier is because I drew crossout. But like I've seen people. Oh no, no. There's also like times when like I go shifter, then they go D barrier, and then I go okay. Okay, so that was the time. Sorry, never mind. That was the time when I did like freaking Rudy Rose and then banish and then shifter again because I
Hmm.
cross it. But like,
Oh my god.
point is, point is, when you are under D barrier, you're technically supposed to just go do little Chimera and hope you have Raigeki to blow their field up, and then they just somehow just don't stop your Chandra OTK with just Doolittle plus Chandra or
Hmm.
something. Um, the only other time was I think they debarred. They didn't have a field because I Raigeki and I had Magnamut, and like I put out 4 other Tenpais on the field, and that was like somehow enough for game
Hmm.
without synchroing because they had a clear field. So like the Raigeki, like or like a board wipe does quote unquote beat D barrier as long as you have the extra oomph to it, and the extra oomph is either Doolittle Chimera or the Magnamut
Hmm.
because because technically 3 to 4 Tenpais alone isn't gonna be game. You need that extra power.
Right. They have the link package too, right? That in theory, like if you're playing against the right deck, can just like if you're playing against Labyrinth, right, and you happen to open like Lightning Storm and they chain D barrier, you still can just game them because they have zero other interruption past that.
Yeah, and some people are playing the Zelantis Raging Phoenix package. I'm still just trying to find the room in my Tenpai list to do
Hmm.
it, unless I am tempted to take out the SP and Striker Dragon for it, just because like I don't think that scenario comes up all the time, but like
Hmm.
sometimes it does. So like if you take out the Striker and the SP, you can fit in like the Raging Phoenix and
Hmm.
Zelantis and I think a lot of the better players are doing that.
Hmm.
I just don't own a Raging Phoenix though. I mean, I probably can borrow one from somebody, but like, I just didn't bother.
That's
Um,
fair. So,
yeah.
what kind of decks are you thinking about, like playing moving forward?
I am going to test the Ryziel and Malice deck. I have a couple ideas for it. I have a case tournament, or not case, like a box tournament on Sunday, and
Let's go.
I don't know what I'm doing Saturday yet. So I'll figure that out later. But yeah, like I'm probably gonna test one of those 2 decks. Um, and I also am just receiving my Millennium, the rest of the cards for my Millennium deck.
Oh,
So I have a
interesting.
couple ideas to play with Millennium Exodia, which is technically, spoiler alert, my next article. It's like X other
So you
ways
guys
to
heard it here
play.
first.
Yeah, if anyone reads my TCG Play articles, my next one is gonna be about other ways to play with Exodia, because I feel like the way that people are building the deck right now, while it is like it does work, like the boring Secret Village stun version is just like, just it's so boring. But it does work. And it's just like, well, what if you could play it with like other cards? Like I see my friend Zach Butler played like the Fiend Smith version, and
Mhm.
I think that's low key pretty good. I just want to test some other versions out, so I'm finishing that article tonight because I have a couple ideas for it. And then no, I think I've also got, what other decks am I building? I guess the besides the Malice and the Ryziel deck, I do
Mhm.
want to try and look into this Ryuji deck, because this is like, it's interesting, but it only does like one thing, and that's the sad thing about it, is that the other two decks, like, they do multiple things,
Right.
and this deck only does one thing. I think, like, from what I look at it, like, it has the one card combo to set up like multiple interactions,
Mhm.
and then if you just like stop the one thing, and then you're like, oh, what do you do, right? So
Mhm.
I'll look into that later. What other decks do I have? I still have my Yubel deck. I can probably like re look into that at one point when I'm bored. Um, and the Chimera deck. I think oh yeah, the White Forest cards. Yeah,
Oh, I
I
like
have the
those.
cards for it, but like what the problem with that is, just like the Runic version is just like way better than like the toy
Yep.
version, I think. And if you play like all engine, then you're not gonna win right now, because like, hand traps are just that good.
Yep.
So like the sad thing about this format is you just have to play hand traps, right? Like
Yep.
so
Literally. Yeah. No, I feel
yeah,
that.
like I kind of feel silly for moving my Labyrinth core, because now I'm like, wow, have the Mold Charmies now. Now I really feel like I want to rebuild Labyrinth to play like a Mold Charmy turn zero hand trap version, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that deck is low key pretty good right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I like Labyrinth. I've always had a soft
Yeah.
spot for
The
Labyrinth.
the sad thing about that deck though is that you have to like dedicate your entire extra deck to the simultaneous equation cannon thing. So you don't get to like, do like Unchained combos or like Chaos Angel. I mean, I guess you have like
I don't know if
one
you
spot
have to. I think you
probably.
could. I think you could, but I think you could play without.
Yeah, like you only have like 14 slots dedicated to the thing, I think, and you have one spot for like either Typhon or a Chaos Angel, and I think more Labyrinth players are leaning on Typhon just because of the trap deck.
You could play like Extravagance though, right? Not and just not play like because D Barrier and Druma Cannon are so good. Like the Equation Cannon is like a blowout, but I do think that there's definitely room for playing like just like three Typhon, three Chaos Angel, some Muckrakers. Maybe play like twos of the
Yeah.
the other guys in the Gamma
You could play a
package.
more classic version, and maybe that could be good, because if Malice is becoming the more dominant deck, or like if Link, and then like, the difference between that Link summoning deck versus like the Snake Eye deck is that you're
Hmm.
not going to see a level 7 or 8 monster on the field in a Malice deck, right? You're only going to see like Link monsters and level 3 or maybe the Bystials on the field.
Right.
May- and that would cause the simultaneous equation cannon to be worse. Because like, I mean, I guess maybe if there was of a Bystial on the field, and maybe there's like there's the right combination of cards to
Hmm.
like do it, but I'm pretty sure if they only have level threes on the field, and the simultaneous equation cannon just like isn't doing much, so you could probably adapt by taking that out.
Yeah, yeah, I kind of like that. And like I said, you can play Extravagance. I think Extravagance is kind of insane in that deck. I mean, just draw two Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Pretty, always pretty good. So I think there's a lot of that's one of the things I like about that deck is it's not very linear. I mean, every deck you can do like a bit of like decision trees and decide like what kind of engines and things like what versions you want to play. But Labyrinth is one of those decks that especially you have like a lot of room for like testing totally different versions and right like that changes the entire dynamic of the deck right if you're playing that. So I think Labyrinth's gonna be is kind of interesting. I think that's like a cool deck, definitely a deck like I'll explore a little bit. I definitely think like Voice is gonna be well positioned, so I want to put like a lot of time into that. I
Yeah,
liked
have you looked into the Ryuji voiceless voice? Come on, man, it's a light dragon
I know,
ritual.
dude. I wish that was better. I would do like I wish so bad that was better.
Did you
I
see the replay I sent you? You could like do your one card combo, then search this to do another one card combo that ends you on like 3, 4 interruptions. Whoa.
I know it's just going first has never been the issue. You could even play. You could play one copy of that too, and you could play like the mini floodgate. I hate to even get called a floodgate because it's so like kind of niche,
It's
but
Shen Shen on I know
yeah, yeah.
it's Shen Shen on your opponent's turn, guys.
But I don't think they're like bad. I think it's like well, I think the Ryugi deck's probably pretty bad. Truthfully, I think it's not. I think they need the pool of um like of that level monster is just not good enough to be
Yeah, it's a lot
playing
of
them.
restrictions.
Yeah, like obviously I think that what's his name is crazy. The worm. Brudris is obviously crazy, but outside of him, I just don't think there's any shots that we're like the people are just gonna play those when
Yeah,
Malice and Ryzel are out, right?
the fire, water, and wind monsters by themselves are pretty Yeah, I mean the wind one apparently is good because you can search the Shen Shen on your opponent's turn, and but then it's like it's on your opponent's turn. It's pretty slow.
Right. So I know you hate these kind of conversations. However, we're on the podcast, so I'm gonna bring it up anyways. What do you think about the Banlist timeline? Right, because it's allegedly coming like it's coming up like this month in anticipation, right? It's can be next month, but that'll be about 5 months. I personally don't think it's gonna come this month. I think we're gonna be
Yeah, so let's
waiting.
see here. I'm just looking on the site. It
Get on the site
says,
quick.
yeah, where's the next update after this will be in a few months, and September is 9. I guess a few months is December, January, and then if we look at the events, what's happening after
I mean
Anaheim?
September. It's been 4 months, right? 4 months is more than a few months, right? Like 4 months is like pushing the pushing for like a few, right? A few to me is like 2 to 3 months. 4 months.
Yeah.
I mean, are we waiting 5 months for a list? But at the same time, we're getting like a new format. So like, do we even need a list at the moment? Can we like see how this plays out?
Yeah, so I I I'm not surprised that we didn't get a list for Anaheim because I know they want to see crossover breakers versus current format, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what they want to see. But like if we look at the upcoming events site, like Anaheim is today or this weekend, and then after that there's actually no other events
Orlando, right?
till the end, yeah, till February, till yeah,
Which is
till the beginning
crazy.
of
They
February.
got to announce
And then if we
something,
look at
right?
the and then if we look at the product page, Supreme Darkness is coming out at the end of January. Is there any other products that are coming out? Because that's coming. Yeah, the
Blue Eye
Blue Eye Structure
Structure
coming.
Deck. It's
That's coming
February,
out
right?
after Orlando. That's
Yeah.
coming after
They pushed it
Orlando.
back a week. It was supposed to come out the weekend of Orlando.
Nope. The weekend of Orlando is the 1st and the 2nd, and then it was supposed to come out the week after, and then it's
Tripping?
got
Am I
pushed to
tripping?
the other week again. Yeah. So, anyways, starter deck. There's other. I guess there's no other products. So yeah, there probably is going to be a ban list coming out in January. Just because they probably want to start the Suda season, like the Supreme Darkness season, in post banlist era.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I can assume. It's interesting, yeah, because like they don't have any. It's winter holidays, and
Right.
nobody's gonna be, playing Yu-Gi-Oh. There's no regionals, no nothing. Like holy jeepers, there's only locals, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
there's
There's
only
there's gonna be
locals.
some regionals, right? The weekend after Christmas, the weekend after that, but then it kind of goes dry. I think they're gonna have to post like a
Oh
new
yeah, true,
regional
true.
season. But like
Yeah, let
last
me
year, we
see what
kind of
the
got
regional
one
season.
at like around Christmas time, right? We got a ban list, and then it went into effect January 1st. I don't feel that that's gonna happen. However, they definitely can't wait till February because that's 6 months. Like, and I don't even feel like we need a ban list at the moment. I think I'm willing to let this see how it plays out. I feel like
They need a ban list to push product, but they don't really need a ban list to balance the game. Besides getting rid of Tenpai,
right, and
I
this
think.
product kind of sold well. I think, right? I mean, you bought a case.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. After opening up my case and like looking at the statistics and stuff, you could have actually easily built the deck with just like 4 or 5 boxes maybe,
Mm-hmm.
and like like if you're only building one of the two decks, and you only need like 5 boxes. If you're building both, maybe two to like the two decks and Ryuji, you probably need like 7 to 8 boxes to
Mm-hmm.
get everything. Uh, but like you could probably also just buy singles. Wow, and that would save you a lot
Mhm.
more money. But you would be missing out on the QCRs and the CR potential. So
Right.
I like how they made the QCRs this way. So I pulled two QCRs in my case. And I thought that was like a cool surprise because I didn't know you could pull two. I only heard that you could pull one or zero, but then
Tight.
after I watched the Cole 40 video, he was mentioning about like case ratios from 120 cases,
Yeah, I missed that
and
video, but
apparently, I only skipped to the part where he's talking about the QCR ratios, and
uh-huh.
he said that most of the cases had two QCRs.
Ah,
Some of the
interesting.
cases had one, and there was only five out of the 120 cases that didn't have any QCRs.
Oh,
So technically, it's actually pretty highly likely that you will open two.
right.
So that means like the value that as it stands right now for the QCRs, uh, they're kind of reasonable. They're probably gonna go down. I thought that if they were only gonna be one per case, if any,
It'd be
because
very
if it was
expensive, right?
yeah, then it would be more expensive, and I was confused at why the price was so low. But now that I have more information and how like the statistics work,
Mhm.
maybe the prices right now are pretty reasonable, and they probably will go a bit lower. That which is kind of sad, but like I mean, like I would hope that these cards were more exclusive and more
Mhm.
rare to keep the value, but whatever. But yeah, I'm just looking at the regionals right now. So yeah, there's gonna be a Montreal regionals this weekend, and then next Canadian regional is January 11th in Niagara Falls.
Ooh, Niagara Falls.
Yeah,
You coming or
yeah,
what?
that's well, yeah, I'll be there.
Hell yeah.
I gotta figure out how to get there because I don't really like driving in the wintertime, but yeah, yeah, and I'm just thinking like, okay, what's the ban list timeline though? Like, if it's January 11th, Suda's coming
Yo,
out
it
of
could be.
Mexico.
I mean, I'm not gonna get my hopes up, but it would be fun if it was like last year and they did like a mid 20 or December 20th to go into effect on January 1st. I mean, it's been 4 months. We get about 3 ban lists a year, right? We don't usually go into the
True.
5 months plus. It's like I said, I'm not expecting it. Nobody like in the chat should expect it, but it could be a nice surprise. You never know.
Yeah,
I'd like
there
to
was
see it.
also was it last year with the cash tier and tier limit format where there was like that ban list that was announced, and then like the cash tier limit format happened, and then the ban list was in effect like after that weekend or something.
I
Uh,
skipped tier format, thankfully.
yeah, so maybe it was the year before that. Yeah, I just gotta remember like when exactly that ban list happened, and they could repeat that kind of history where it's like, oh, we're playing crossover breaker plus Fire King Snake Eye
Hmm.
format, and then like next week it's like, oh, it's just crossover breaker format. You have to play Ryziel or Malice,
Right.
and
Should be down for it.
so
I'd like to see. I mean, I think there's a good possibility though that they're gonna hit Snake Eye cards, and that a Fire King variant is still like a very reasonable deck to play.
yeah, that is ideal. But like the Azamina storyline with is still continuing on in Suda with the White Forest stuff. So like they can't eradicate everything. They have to like I think banning Flameberg is still pretty reasonable at this point, just because the Flamberg isn't relevant to the White Forest story, I
Hmm.
think. So just like how they banned Kikkalos in the TCG, they could just ban the story card that makes the whole part of that deck work.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it'd be
Yeah.
interesting, and I think you could still play Fire King for sure. Like I think a Fire King version is still like honest to God, I think is easily a top 10 deck, if
Yeah.
not like better. Like I think there's still
Yeah,
some
and
Fire
they
King.
might also have to ban OSS just because like that card is still insane. But
That
like if
would
they
help a lot. I think that would make the
yeah, that
deck
would
way
help a
more
lot, but
reasonable.
also like that card is also still important in the simple story in the because some of the new White Forest cards can
Mhm.
search for OSS, right? So like I guess they can't hit it yet because it's still accessible in that kind of deck. But it would be
Right.
nice to see at least a part of that engine dismantled. Like, please, oh my
That's
gosh.
the thing is like I feel like if they ban Flameburge, it will still feel like we're playing like if playing against a Fire King deck with that's still just playing Deceptions and Witches and Wanteds and OSS and Pwn like it's gonna feel like the same thing if I'm being honest. Like feels like they're gonna end on like the Emblewell with Princess and Arvada and Friends, and that's like arguably feels worse than this like a more oppressive than the Snake Eye board at the moment.
Hmm.
And I wouldn't be. Like, I feel like we'll definitely still see like a good portion of that. If they banned OSS though, I think that changes things, right? I think that makes the engine in the deck significantly worse, which I think it's
Oh yeah.
possible. What about Princess? like, I mean, I think that like that definitely hits the deck a lot, but it leaves the lore completely like unscathed, right? And it like that would fix the Fire King issue because I feel like Fire Kings is just not going to be played without Princess, my opinion at least. And it also would like very hardly check, like it would check Snake Eye very aggressively.
Yeah, that's hard to say. Like, it's Promethean Prince is just so good. I would hope to see it gone, but like they if they want to promote the fire card still, they just I mean they're already making Promethean Princess like super accessible to everyone, but like that doesn't mean that they can't just ban the card. Oh my
Right?
gosh.
Year of Fire though coming to an end. No.
Yeah, yeah, I hope so. And
This
also
thing.
like I know the Azamina White Forest a Sinful Story deck in OCG is like not even like the best deck. It's still Ryziel as the best deck, not only
Oh yeah.
but that's maybe because they have like the 7 Ascension cards to like make sure that deck is like more consistent than it is in the TCG. So maybe if we're in that timeline where Supreme Darkness comes out and White Force, Snake Eye, Azamina, Diggy Bellstar storyline deck is still like at full power basically, then like that deck will probably overtake the Ryziel deck. And maybe that's what they want is to like have like a back and forth power struggle between Ryziel and that because then 2 months later, then Magnificent Mavens or whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Let me read it. What is this product called again? Product. Maze of the Master, yeah. So when that set comes out, and then that's when the new Seventh Ascension whatever card
Mm-hmm.
comes out, then that'll make that deck better. It's almost like what happened with Maze of Millennium or whatever last year,
Mm-hmm.
where Transaction Rollback and Bonfire made,
Bonfire
well, the
goes
Bonfire
crazy.
specifically, yeah, Bonfire made the Snake Eye deck go way better than it was
Mm-hmm.
the week before, right? Like
Right,
before that,
infinitely better.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, what happened before they got Bonfire? They just played Free Snake Cash and just hope that. I think they might also play. You know, what Snake Cash was Poplar. Yeah, oh gosh, Poplar was already. Yeah, they just maxed them both probably. And then when Bonfire came,
Mm-hmm.
then they like changed the shit. Maybe I don't know. I don't remember what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, me neither. It's an interesting situation. But don't forget the OCG has one bonfire. So like when they got 7 Tachyon, it was like it was a big boost. But like right now they're just playing 3 bonfires, so it feels like the same thing almost. Like they're down like one card, right? If like they have one more starter than we have now. All those because like 7 Tachyon's in Mag 1, right?
Also, like, is it 7 also searches Lancia?
It does search for Lancia.
Pushes Malice down.
Yes, I think that pushes Malice down a huge bit. Like, is I think Lance is good, but I'm not even sure like tons of people are gonna play it. But if 7th Tachyon searches it, like say they were playing 7th Tachyon right now, right? They just at minimum, I'd almost guarantee they're playing at least one copy of Lancia, right? So like that for sure just like changes things. So I don't know, kind of an interesting dynamic that's gonna arise. But we'll have to see. I mean, we'll have to see when the ban list comes, what arises of it, and yeah, all that good stuff. But yeah, I think
What are you doing this weekend, huh?
that's a good question. I am going to be streaming the YCS. I was a bit conflicted about like I was gonna go to the Rochester Regional. I haven't tested like I've tested the new decks. Like I know how to play the new decks, but don't like if I'm playing against Tenpai, I'm not thinking when I'm playing it. Like I've seen these interactions before. I've done them 1,000 times. Where like there's no, you know what I mean? It's not like well maybe I should be doing this. Like they're never catching me off guard ever. It's just like I'm doing the appropriate play. Same thing with Snake Eye, Yubel, all the decks right now. Against those decks, I don't feel the same way, and I also am super excited to see what turns out of the YCSC. Like, I know a lot of people have been gassing Ryziel, but I still really think that there's going to be a good amount of pro players that are going to show up on Malice, and I think it's going to be strong. I'm interested to see where the format kind of plays out and like what that, kind of what I can make
This is
indicating of
definitely the
the
weekend
new
to
format.
chillax if you're not ready for it. But like, do you have any other decks you could borrow or?
Yeah, I mean, I could play I could play. I own the full Mermel deck, which I think is fun, but I don't think it's like the most
Ooh.
competitive thing. I mean, I could probably realistically, I could probably play whatever if I'm being honest. Like I could, I've like enough local friends that I could borrow a deck. I've had like
Tenpai.
a few decks that I could borrow like on last second. Like I borrowed a Pirelli deck and played it months ago. If I wanted to play Labyrinth, I could definitely play Labyrinth, which is like one of the things I would consider.
Yeah.
So there's like I could play like Centurion, Labyrinth,
How far is the
Voiceless.
Rochester regional from your place? It's only like an hour and a half, right? I guess. Yeah.
No, about
Oh.
50 minutes. Not even.
Oh wow.
Yeah, close,
15
close.
minutes?
50,
Oh my
50. No,
goodness.
50, 50.
Oh. Oh, okay, okay, okay. An hour.
But
Okay. Yeah, I have a couple of friends. For some reason, they're driving down there
mhm.
from Oshawa, and I'm just like, man, that's crazy. But they're driving down Friday afternoon or something, and I
Oh,
can't make
okay.
that kind of trip. Yeah. Otherwise, if I had enough time, I probably would have joined
Hmm.
just because I don't have anything planned. But then I have to also figure out a way to come back on like Saturday night,
Hmm.
because I want to go to another event on Sunday. Oh my gosh,
Right.
that would be crazy. Yeah, and there's also a Montreal regionals happening this Saturday, and I kind of wish I could go. I do
Hmm.
have a lot of friends in Montreal. We'll just hang out. But
Right.
oh well.
Next weekend, though, there's
Not
still
I don't
regionals
want
next
to.
weekend.
Yeah, I don't want to drive in the wintertime that for those kind of far locations.
Right. That's the thing too. Is like I don't really know what it's gonna look like on Saturday weather-wise. So, like I said, honestly, God, even if we had like a week in the format, I probably would have went. But I'm super excited about this YCS. I'm super excited to stream it. So, of
Mhm.
course, as always, if you want to pop in, I'll be streaming the YCS. If you want to pop into Discord, watch some of the matches together. I think most of the last like bunch of YCSs that have been streamed, I think we've been in Discord together and watched some of them and talked about some of the gameplay in the matches. So you're always welcome. You know
Yeah,
the vibes.
yeah.
And
I'll message you updates on Sunday when I'm playing. I guess. Yeah,
yeah,
that'd be
for
kind of
sure.
fun.
So that'd be exciting. And I think we covered everything for this week. So as long as nothing comes up, we should be back next Thursday. If you guys want to check it out, ProphecyWiz_ on Twitch TV. And yeah, it's Prophecy Wiz and Hanko Chow signing out, and we'll see you guys next week. If you guys have any comments, please drop them below, and we'll answer any questions. Also, if you guys have any questions, be sure to drop them below. And if you guys want them in the podcast next weekend, we might do like a little question and answer at the end of the podcast. If anybody has questions in the comments that we think would be good for the podcast, we will throw them in and answer them at the end of the next podcast. So
Like an AMA.
yeah, that'd be neat. So thank you guys again so much. We appreciate you guys, and I'll see you.